Do you remember when you first saw it? Where were you when your life was changed forever? Or maybe you've only heard about it. Wherever you are in your Fooly Cooly journey, we're firing it up again. Check out Fooly Cooly Season 1, April 14th at 11:30.
Say what you want about Neon Genesis Evangelion, it undeniably has character writing any writer would sell their house to obtain. And animation is so good, people have been analyzing the minutia of it for decades. Kazuya Tsurumaki was next up to the plate with his 6-episode OVA Fooly Cooly. Tsurumaki realized that trying to replicate Evangelion wasn't something he wanted to do. In a 2017 interview, he said this: "The story of Evangelion starts off to become very serious. For me, Fooly Cooly didn't need to be as serious as Evangelion. Even when you're stressed, you still eat sweets. In this way, if there's something that looks interesting on TV, you'll end up watching it. Just because you're stressed, it doesn't mean that you'll spend all day in the corner of the room, hugging your knees to your chest." I wanted to reflect this in Fooly Cooly. I think his sentiment is abundantly clear in Fooly Cooly. The fast-paced nature of Fooly Cooly doesn't allow for action to stop enough to have moments like that very often. And to be honest, even though Fooly Cooly is filled with comedy and fast-paced action, I think when the show takes a second to slow down, you really feel the brakes being pumped. I would actually argue the moments that we find Naota sulking or quiet come off as far more impactful than when Shinji does it. And I think the reason for that isn't just that we were oversaturated to it when it happens to Shinji. That's absolutely true. Shinji is a little bitch. But also because of what Tsurumaki identified as the key difference between the two shows. Even when you're stressed, you still eat sweets. Okay, now what the fuck does that have to do with being cool? Being cool in its nature requires an observer. Now, people do things every day on accident that are cool. But when you strive to be cool, there's a good chance it comes from a place of either jealousy or insecurity. I know those words have a negative connotation to them, but try your hardest to remove that from what I'm saying. Naota doesn't give himself time to sulk. Instead, he masks it by trying to be cool. When he has cat ears coming out his fucking head, he's too insecure to take his hat off. When Kanji spits him out on the ground, his first emotion every time is usually being embarrassed. But he's still going to be the first one to brag about it, saying he saved the world. I think it's fine to strive towards something cool. But if you're unhappy with yourself, it isn't a solution to deeper problems. For the first half of the OVA, Naota gets away with being like this. Everyone around him is forced to take him at face value. How he's coping with his stress is still creating friction for him, but he hasn't really had to answer for it yet. This is why episode 4 is probably my favorite episode of Fooly Cooly. It takes the incoherent rambling of a story that Fooly Cooly is and ties it together to give the audience a more cohesive understanding of the characters and the story both before and after it. It gives Naota his swing the bat moment. Kazuya Tsurumaki actually said something extremely interesting about this moment when asked why the Vespa was in Fooly Cooly. He said, "Sadamoto Yoshiyuki owned a Vespa himself, and I always thought it was cool and I always wanted one. They had a yellow Vespa in the shop, and I could never decide to buy it because it was so expensive. But if I used it as a prop, I would have a good excuse to buy it. Just like Naota, I was hesitant to swing the bat. But if I had a good enough reason, I'd do it." So what reason would be good enough for Naota to swing the bat? An opportunity not only to step to the plate when it comes to proving he's good enough, but also an opportunity to truly be cool. Not out of jealousy, not out of insecurity, but out of the process that led him to overcoming those flaws. When I first had the idea for this video, talking about why Fooly Cooly is cool, I had the same outlook as everyone who saw Naota before episode 4. I thought it was so impressive that the show was being cool for the sake of being cool. And I don't want to entirely dismiss that. I think adding a pull string to a bass to rev it up so it can be used as a bat is one of the most nonsensical, purely cool things that has ever been thought of. And Fooly Cooly is full of choices that are cool just because they are. like the same guitar being used as a snowboard minutes later. But I think when you have a world full of unknown, world-ending threats, brain-smoothing irons, and lovesick aliens turning your forehead into a portal, then masking the severity of those things with flashy cool shit isn't only normal, it's extremely human. The show reaches its swinging the bat moment in its final episode. The conclusion doesn't resolve everything, or answer every question. Kazuya Tsurumaki addresses this by saying, for Naota, it's enough for him to just have the Haruko he believes in. So it doesn't matter to him whether fraternity is an evil association or army corps or invasion. Well, in Evangelion, these sorts of setups and mysteries were made to be hooks for the story, so you have to reap what you sow. But with Fooly Cooly, we took the position that some things just don't have to be answered. I think that approach is what solidifies this very human take on getting through something. Every question isn't always answered, and I think it would take away from what makes Fooly Cooly special if every question was answered. While being extremely profound in how it expresses these ideas, they're actually very mundane. Something every person has to go through. A story that is truly nothing amazing at all.
Nothing amazing happens here. Everything is ordinary. We crossed the bridge as usual. And before we knew it, the seasons had changed. Mamimi left town. She said she wanted to be a photographer. I don't know what happened to her after that.